I don't think there's a single person out there who would disagree that the World Cup final is the biggest match in football. You have nation against nation, sometimes continent against continent. There's really nothing like it in football. That is, unless you're playing a video game. International football is undeniably awful in basically every game. There are games that did get it right, like the 2010 World Cup one, but it's been nearly 15 years since that game was released. So that led me on to the question, why does every video game make international management feel so boring? Oh, and I'll be focusing on FIFA for most of this video, but I might also dip into Football Manager and PES here and there. Okay, so let's talk about career mode, the most popular offline football mode in any football game. It's all about becoming a manager, winning as many trophies as possible, and rewriting football history. You'd think that taking over a national team would be close to the pinnacle of this game mode, right? Well, you would be wrong. This is what the current state of the World Cup is like in FIFA career mode on FC25. It's fair enough that it's unlicensed now, I totally understand why, but even after 10 years of complaints, you still get things like players retiring halfway through a World Cup when you're playing in career mode. Things get even worse though. You might notice there's actually only 29 international teams available, not even enough for the full 32-team tournament we had in Qatar. This is a step back, especially compared to a few years ago where there was 40 teams, and even 40 isn't going to be enough from 2026 onwards because that tournament needs 48 to have a realistic structure. Even if we look past the lack of teams, managing a national team is only really fun for a few games and it gets stale very, very quickly. As an international manager, all you'll be doing is going onto this page, selecting your players for your squad, and then playing a match every couple of months. In fact, because you go so long between games, which of course is how it works in real life, you can quite often forget that you're even in charge of a national team because there's literally nothing else for you to do. There's no need to scout players for your next squad, there's no player training when you actually have the players at your team, there's no pressure from the media, and pressure is actually one of the biggest things that is missing from career mode. When you're managing a club team, you might have a few million fans who are cheering or criticizing you, but when you're managing someone like Brazil, all of a sudden you have over 200 million fans watching your every move. Managing India or China, and you could be dealing with over 1 billion fans. No football game has ever captured this pressure from fans and the media properly. The weight of managing a national team should force you into decisions that you don't have to make when you're a club manager, and it should definitely impact how some of your players perform. Like I said before, there is no job in world football that has more pressure than being the manager of Brazil. And yet, that's not even an option in career mode. It feels like international management has become an absolute afterthought in this game, but at least it's still included. Before its recent delay to March, Football Manager 25 announced that you're not going to be able to manage national teams at any point of your save. Okay, so we know that the systems and the tournaments for international football are absolutely awful in career mode, but at least you can manage a team. PES doesn't have career mode at all, and Football Manager is, as we just said, removing international management altogether. But what could actually change inside career mode to make national teams more fun? I fully understand why people focus solely on club career mode and ignore the international side, but I just wish there was a way to just play as a national team manager. It's so rare for someone to hold both a club and national team role at the same time, and if I could just spend a couple of seasons managing just the English national team, I wouldn't even mind if the simulation time was way longer because the game was simulating every single English player's matches. Of course though, if you did play as just an international manager, the role would need so much more depth. At the minute, you can't scout national teams. You can get pre-match overviews of the opposition teams, but there's no way to scout every single English player. Instead, you have to scout by league, which means you'd miss out on some of the players who are actually playing abroad. For example, if you wanted to find a new winger for your next England squad, you were just scouting England and France, you would miss out on someone like Bino Gittins, who could be absolutely destroying the Bundesliga. Even if you didn't play international football and EA decided to update this mode, it would impact your save. The Africa Cup of Nations is often held during the European football season, and it causes some of the biggest clubs in the world to lose some of their best players. I remember Arsenal had to famously deal with this about a decade ago. Liverpool have had to play without Salah in 2018, 2020 and 2024. And further down the table, my own club, Nottingham Forest, lost half of their starting 11 to African Cup of Nations teams and nearly got relegated because of it last season. Of course, African Cup of Nations isn't part of career mode. In fact, now there's actually only 6 teams from North America, South America, Africa and Asia combined. Meanwhile, Europe gets 23 teams, which is enough for them to have the European Championships. But that means there's no African Cup of Nations, there's no Gold Cup in North America, there's no Asian Cup, and there's not even a South American tournament at all. Okay, so I've now spoken for 5 minutes about how bad international management is in Football Manager and in FIFA. So how could a game actually make national management more fun? It's a very hard question to answer, but let's give it a go. I think there's 5 things that could make national teams a lot more fun, and most of these things are already in career mode or in Football Manager for regular club sides. The first thing that I would want to add is some kind of national vision and footballing culture. Implementing a system where national teams have long-term goals, like maybe 5-year plans, something you hear a lot about in real life, could give national teams different identities. These 5-year plans are important because most managers only get a single tournament cycle before they get replaced, rather than the rolling 1-year contracts FIFA likes to give out. I'd love it if football associations forced you to have a certain tactical vision or formation, because that's something that almost every national team's FA does. Someone like Spain wouldn't go out to hire Sean Dyche, let him rip up 15 years of progress and play long ball 4-4-2, but someone like Northern Ireland probably would. Another thing that really needs to change is how common squad rotation is in international matches. Managers should have to rotate their squad almost every single match, and I think that some players like James Rodriguez or Miroslav Klose should perform better for their national team than they do for their club. If there was some kind of hidden attribute that boosted a player's international performances, it would add depth and also encourage some of this squad rotation. It's actually quite annoying that overall ratings matter so much for international football. If you look at a random international squad, you'll probably see 10 to 15 players that are going to be in every single squad, and the other 10 players are going to be people who are in good form. However, in career mode, no one would do this. You just pick the 25 best players. Wouldn't it be so much better if this screen showed you how many goals, assists, and clean sheets each player had got, rather than just their overall rating? I just think that that would be a really fun change. Another change that could be added is media pressure, and I already talked about the lack of pressure in career mode earlier, but having a media that encouraged you to make changes would be a really fun addition. It rarely happens at club level, it does here and there, you might see it with Manchester United, but in real life, every single person in every single country has an opinion on their national team that their manager is doing wrong. We saw it big time this last summer in England, where there was heavy media pressure to play with Anthony Gordon or Cole Palmer instead of Phil Foden. The same thing happened with James Maddison and Jack Grealish in the past, and if we go even further back, the media played a massive role in getting Theo Walcott a surprise call-up to the 2006 World Cup. While we're talking about the World Cup, it doesn't actually even matter in career mode. In Football Manager, you get to see the trophy on your profile and you get a small reputation boost, but in career mode, it's even worse. You might get a brief news story by Fabrizio Romano that your team won the World Cup, but that's it. Maybe players involved in winning a tournament could get some big stat boosts. I mean, take FIFA 15 for example. Germany won the 2014 World Cup, and EA boosted Jerome Boateng from an 80 to an 85, and then up to an 87. Mats Hummels and Ilkay Gundogan received similar boosts, and while these increases were partly due to their performances at their clubs, they likely wouldn't have been as large if Germany hadn't also won the World Cup. Even if these changes wouldn't totally fix international management, I think combined with more teams, even if they were unlicensed, I think a lot more people would actually choose to take on the World Cup. Let me know what changes you'd make by leaving me a comment, and if you like this video, press like and maybe someone from EA will actually get to see it. I hope they do, because it's time to make the World Cup great again.